Hi guys, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prab, and this is the continuation of my previous video. In the previous video of ISO 27001, we done with the what is called SOA, statement of applicability, and we submit the reports with operation plannings and all that. And in this particular video, we're going to discuss about detail about operation planning, and we're going to follow how to implement clause 8 to 10 in detail with the documentation. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, and for more information, you can check my LinkedIn profile. I highly recommend before checking this video, check my previous video, then only you can able to connect those dots. And I will try my best to deliver you the great content what you are looking for in this ISO series. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. So we have a next important plan, which is called as a clause 8.1. Okay, so we're done with till clause 7. And now we are in a phase where we're going to follow the clause 8.1, which is all about whatever the controls we have selected, we have to implement those controls. Now, if you talk about clause 8.1, they talk about how to plan, implement and control processes required to meet the ISMS requirement. So whatever the things we did in the planning stage of clause 6, in the clause 8.1, we are going to implement and we're going to operate that. So how this process starts? So as I said, based on SOA, whatever we have, okay, based on SOA, whatever the risk assessment we did, whatever the treatment has been finalized, based on that, we're going to implement the control. And once we implement the control, we have to operate the controls. So first step is we need to identify process. So based on a risk assessment SOA, we identify key processes which required operation controls, like access controls, we have incident response, we have, and along with that, we have a chain management. It's just example, okay? Second is establish the criteria, define the specific criteria for each process. Example, if you take the example of access control. So the criteria include approve access levels, periodic review, and authentication method. So by that we can able to achieve the access control. The second part is incident response process, where we have a criteria include incident response time, documentations, escalation protocols, and all that. So whatever the processes you have defined, okay, we have to establish the criteria for that. Third is document the procedures. What are the procedures we have for each key processes? So example, like we have access control for SOP. Like, okay, I want access control in the organization. So what is SOP for that? So we have a process of granting, review, revoking. For incident response, we need to document detailed procedure of identity. So whatever the controls we have discussed and finalized in SOA, in this we're creating SOP for that, like chain management procedures, supplier and third-party management procedures, because we have already agreed we need a control. Now in this particular stage, we're talking about the operational planning for that, which is called as a SOP. Okay, now next important element we have here is like implementing the control mechanism. Like we have a process monitoring. So whatever the process you're implementing, you need to define the metrics for that. You need to have a KPI, because if I'm saying I have an effective incident management process, how can you track that? Like number of incidents has been resolved in 5 hours, 6 hours, or if you're creating a security awareness training, post security awareness training, there's an increase of incident report, decrease in a security violations. So we need a KPIs to be defined. And then if any kind of a changes are there, it need to go through a change management process, because any unauthorized change called as a non-compliant. So make sure monitor for unintended changes, their impact, and more important, document the response taken to mitigate the potential risk. So we have some documents to be required here, like change control logs, which track all the plan. Here you can see. Second is we need a controls for the external processes. So we have a supplier evaluation control register, which lists your external suppliers, evaluation criteria, and control measures. So whatever the executions need to be done, that we are doing in this particular stage. Moving to the next part is, see, as a part of a risk assessment, it's a schedule. Like, first we did the risk assessment because we need to finalize the control. Now, once we implement the procedures, we have to do risk assessment on regular basis. So we need to create a procedure for that. Okay, in what intervals you have to do that, and what are the triggers that have to be documented. So that is also part of our operation planning. And then we execute the risk assessment process, and we maintain some documents like risk register. We have here, you can see, we have a risk assessment reports. that we need to document. Along with that, we also have a process of review and update the risk criteria. And for that, we have one document called risk assessment criteria and methodology document. See, we done with the planning, we done with the do, now we are in a check and act phase. So risk assessment is also a regular activity we have to perform. That's why if you can see here, we have a risk register, we have a risk assessment reports, we have a risk assessment criteria methodology document. So here in the previous phase, we discussed about risk management and all that, we introducing a procedure. So here we introducing a detailed procedure for that. What is the criteria and all that we have to finalize. Then the next phase we have is clause 8.3, which talk about the information security risk treatment. So whatever the risk need to be treated, it need to be documented. So identify the treatment actions. We have a 4 type of actions: mitigate, transfer, avoid, and accept. Then implement the controls, because whatever the SOA we have agreed, we have to working on the actions. And more important, we require the documents. Like we have a document here is risk treatment and plan register. So it's a document that we have to maintain, which reflect my treatment of all the risk that we have identified in each stage and what is the control and implementation status. Now we have a next clause, further to that, we have to monitor the implementation of a treatment plan. So the documents we have here is, it's not mandatory, but it is good to have like risk treatment progress, which shows the implementation status. That's a very important part. And then we also evaluate the effectiveness of a risk treatment measure, like we review the implemented control with the help of internal audit. So for that, we create one document called as a residual risk report, where we summarize the risk that remain after treatment and justification for risk acceptance. So all those things are required. So you can say like that clause 8 required, we have a 3 clause in that: 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. 8.1 talk about the SOP to be created. So we have a document like access control SOP, incident response procedure, change management, supplier change control logs. Purpose is to manage access, incidents and everything. Then we have a clause 8.2 where we have a 3 documents: risk register, risk report, risk assessment criteria and methodology document. And this is the information about that. And then we have a clause 8.3 which talk about the risk treatment plan register, risk treatment progress tracker and residual risk report. So these are the stuffs are required, okay, in the clause 8. Now question is why each steps and documents is important. That's a question, okay, because it's always there, because till planning stage, till the clause 7 we're talking about implementations and all that, but now we're talking about the procedures, right? So why each step is important? Because operation planning and control ensure your ISMS process are controlled, documented and resilient against changes. Okay, so in the case of contingency and all that, we know what tracks we have. Second is risk assessment helps the aspirants to monitor, identify, evaluate new changing risk, because initial risk assessment we did to identify what controls are required, but it doesn't mean once you've done the risk assessment, everything is mitigated. We have to regular assessment for some critical projects. That's why we're doing again as per the 8.2. And as the business change, organization change, according to the detailed procedure, we do the risk assessment. Then the third is risk treatment to ensure that, the identified risks are addressed and thorough appropriate controls, residual risk are monitored and justified, because residual risk is a risk which is left after implementing a control. So we have to make sure the risk should not go beyond the appetite, beyond the capacity. So we do the monitoring based on that. So that's why we have to document that. Now we are moving to the next, which is called 9.1. Now we have implemented a control. We did the risk assessment. What next? We have to monitor to make sure it met the objectives. Okay, we have to demonstrate. Okay, so based on the risk assessment SOA, we identify the ISMS process and we directly mapping with the security objective. So here whatever the controls we have implemented, we have to monitor that. So like example, we are following access control procedure, but here we are monitoring the access permissions. We have an incident management process. We have to track the number and severity of security incidents. We have a training and awareness. We have to track the effectiveness of that. So because auditor come and ask for the logs for this, is it clear? So we have to demonstrate, okay, whatever the controls we have, we are monitoring that. Understood? Now, next important element we have here is define the KPIs. Now, key performance indicator, it's a very important thing. There is a dedicated video I made on the KPI. Okay. So key performance indicator talk about the effectiveness of the process. So if I say I have a KPI for my CISSP or my CISA CSM batch is 100%. Okay. So what is the KRI? People don't attend the training. So number of people if not attend the training, I will not able to achieve my defined 100% KPI. So KRIs are basically lead to the KPI. So it's very important to define the KPIs. So we have a KPI here is access control violations, incident response time, training completion rate. So we have to demonstrate this KPIs to the auditor also when he come for an audit. So all these are basically part of one document which is called as a ISMS monitoring and measurement plan. So this is the document we need to have for the audit, which demonstrate how we're doing a monitoring. And this document include the ISMS process, associate control, and the respective KPI. That is important. Okay, you don't need to have too many KPIs. You can have a relevant KPIs which is required to monitor the process. Now, next important thing we have here is select the monitoring and measurement method. See, as I said, question is what is the method we have to use? Like for access control, we use logs. For incident management, we have a incident response time, root cause analysis. Okay, for training awareness, we track the attendance. So that is basically the method we have. But we have to make sure they should be consistent and reproducible. A good metrics is the one which can reproduce and provide the very good data. So we need to have a standard data collection method to collect the data. It should not be non-uniform, it should be uniform. And the document here is required is monitoring and measurement methodology, because in my absence, someone can follow this method to collect the data. So as per the 9.1, we need to have one monitoring and measurement methodology, which talk about how we're doing a monitoring. Exactly. So once you define the monitoring method, then we have to define what is the frequency. So we have to define when monitoring measuring will occur. So you have to determine the frequency. You want a monthly, you want a quarterly, you want annually. So if it's a very critical process, do monthly. If it's not a critical, you can do quarterly. If it's not very much, you can go annually, because it involved a lot of time. It involved a lot of money. Okay, so you can also do the trigger based monitoring. You know, whenever there's a major change happen in the enterprise business, you do the monitoring. So we have a monitoring schedule. The requirement document is called monitoring schedule, which outline each control, monitoring interval, and we have a trigger based monitoring conditions. That something is there. Okay. Now, once you're done with the monitoring, the next step is basically define the roles. Who will do what? Like we need one document. You know, in the clause 5 and 6, we discuss about roles and responsibility document is required. There you can document this also. Like, because I'm talking about 9.1 has a multiple. Okay. Here you can see we have a 9.1a. You can see A, 9.1a. Okay. So each clause 9.1 has a sub clauses. Okay. So 9.1a, which say determine what need to be monitored. 9.1.b, which say define the method. Then 9.1.c, which say define when monitoring need to be done. And then 9.11d, which say rules and responsibility, which is there. Now we have a 9.1.c, where we have to determine the evaluation interval. So we have to define when the result will be evaluated. Like you can have a monthly, you can have a quarterly, or you can have a annually. So you can have a schedule of the formal evaluation meeting, and auditor will ask for this meeting record. So you can have a MOM for that. Is it clear? So required document is performance evaluation schedule. So this is a document we required, and which include your quarterly review and annual management review. Now next is called F, where we have to define the role for analyzing and evaluating results. So we need an information security manager who will do the overall assessment of ISMS performance. Department heads like financial head, business heads, they are having a specific controls matrix. And then we have an internal auditor, which basically using this matrix for the assessment. And then we can create an evaluation process. Example, you can outline how the information security manager review monthly logs. And that's why we're creating one document called data analysis procedure, which outline the method for each matrix who perform what. Okay, that something is there. Then we have a step 7 in the 9.1 clause, which say maintain the document of evidence. So whatever the monitoring we did, we need to maintain the documents for that, because that demonstrate to the auditors we are doing great. So we have a logs for access control, incident log, training records, and we document the results in our reports. And then what we're going to do is we compile entire performance report for management review. So we prepare the periodic reports. Okay, we summarize the effectiveness of controls and any identify issue, and also provide the comprehensive annual performance reports. So that something is part of a requirement. So requirement document, what we need is we need a monthly, quarterly ISMS performance report, okay, which summarize your metrics, incident action plan, and we need an annual ISMS performance evaluation report. Either you can have monthly or you can have annual. That's fine. Now here you can see the reports like ISMS monitoring. We need to list ISMS process for monitoring and methodology. Define the methods. Monitoring schedule, outline the frequencies. ISMS accountability metrics, which include the monitoring and everything. Performance evaluation schedule for monthly, annual performance evaluation. Data analysis procedure, which talk about how each metrics need to be analyzed. Because it's not possible, okay, I have a different way to analyze the metrics, you have a different way to analyze the metrics. Then we also have a monthly, quarterly ISMS report. So that's something we have to provide, an annual ISMS performance evaluation report. Now the question is why each step is important. That's something we need to understand so that you get a better visibility. So we need to make sure, everyone is clear about the responsibility, who does what. Okay, so we need to assign the clear roles and responsibility, who will do what. We can also validate the control effectiveness. Okay, it can also help me to improve my ISMS, and more important, these documents help me to prepare for audit. I can get the visibility where I'm stand, right? Now we have a next important step, which is called 9.2. It's all about audit. Audit is all about providing a independent viewpoint, whether it is working effectively or not. See, if I am a implementer, I cannot audit. And we have a different type of audit. We have an internal audit, we have a external audit, we have a third party audit. So I am doing internal audit right now. When I'm doing an audit of the vendors, it's called second party audit. And when ISMS auditor or BSI auditor or any external auditor come for an audit and certify my organization, that's called third party audit. So when you're talking about here audit has to be done. Okay, it's very important because audit provide the viewpoint. So we have a steps to implement the audit. So first step is establish the audit program. Your audit program include your audit frequencies, okay, your audit results. Okay, so schedule the audit at least annually, and if it's a very critical process that need to be audited on a quarterly basis, you can also use a previous audit results. In one of my cases where when I did the audit, I use a previous audit result, and based on that I did the assessment because that gave me better visibility. Second step is define the audit scope and criteria. Scope is which each audit will cover, like specific process, department, control. So here the criteria specific what audit will measure is ISO 27001 policies and everything. So here one document is required is called internal audit program document. So that is something is required. And this program include the audit schedule, scope, frequency and criteria. Now we have a clause 9.2, which is the another part called as this one, appoint the auditor. So we need to select the auditor. So choose auditor with no involvement in the area in audit to maintain the impartiality and ensure auditor have adequate training on 27001. So we list the auditor qualifications. So we need one required document called, okay, this is the profile. Okay. And then he will conduct the audit. So we have a different type of audit methods, like using a combination of interviews, document review, observation, and we gather all the evidence. So we document the observations, okay, non-conformity, and we see observation is okay, but non-conformity is a concern. So yeah, so the required document is like we need an internal audit checklist, list of items to be reviewed, and audit work papers, which is include your notes, evidence, artifacts, and everything. You have to produce that, okay, which demonstrate we did the audit. And then next is called as a report the audit results to the relevant management. Like audit report is there, which document the findings, non-conformity. Okay, it is always good to have a balanced report. It should not be always negative. It should be a combination of both. Like, okay, I did the audit of this control. I really found the control effective is great, but other controls are not effective. So it's a balanced approach. It should not be negative. And as an auditor, you can also provide the recommendation. Action plan will be prepared by the auditee. So the required document is internal audit report, which summarize the audit results, non-conformity and corrective action. Then we also have a next thing called document maintain the evidence. So we need to archive the audit reports, keep the records, And the corrective action log is also one kind of a document we need to have. It's a very important one. Okay. So two documents we have is audit record archives. So we have a central repository for audit related document we keep for 5 years at least, and corrective action logs, which tracks the non-conformity and corrective actions. That something is part of this requirement. Now, next is called as this one, 9.3, which is called management review. So top management will review the ISMS at the plan interval. So we need a MOM for that. Why? Because they want to check the suitability adequacy. So management review inputs we have is like we schedule the management review meetings. We can have frequency can be set at least annually, semi-annually. Second is coordination is required, where we talk about the implementations and all that. So we have a plan review after key events like risk assessment, audits and everything. And the required documents we have like management review schedule. So it outline the frequency and timing of management review. Now we need some inputs. Okay. Under 9.3.2, we have a management review input. So we have to prepare management review to collect the inputs like status of previous actions. Okay. External internal change, like document any significant changes in internal external factors that could impact the ISMS. Like there's a change in the regulatory, there's a change in the business. And because of that, we have to modify the ISMS. And very important is stakeholder feedback. It's very important. That's why we call this as a ISMS performance data. This collect data on the base of non-conformity, monitoring measurement results, audit findings, and information security objective performance. So all those things are the ISMS performance data we have. So the document I need in 9.3 is management review input document, which collate all the required information for review, including a performance data, non-conformity, audit findings, and risk assessment. That's the most important part. Now, next important we have is management review inputs. So we have to prepare management review. So here we're talking about risk assessment treatment. Based on that, we collect the input. We provide management with the insight on current risk, which is called risk assessment findings. And we also provide the risk treatment plan progress. So we look for the opportunities, like we identify the improvements based on the discussions, and we have some decisions to be taken where the top management identify the actions. So according to that, we can improve the process, and we document the results where we have a meeting minutes. That is the one document. Meeting minutes should include your records, key decisions, action items, and agreed timeline. Second is review the outcomes end to end, where you summarize the decisions. And more important, the one document that we have to maintain is management review report. This report include your formal record of review meetings, capturing the key inputs, decisions, and everything. So clause 9 has some documents, example like internal audit program, which talk about audit schedule, scope, frequency, auditor qualification selection record. So you have to demonstrate the procedure, how you selected the auditor, audit checklist to be reviewed, audit work papers, evidences. Like if I'm doing an audit of change management process, so I have a change management log, that is my work paper, detailed report, audit archives, correction action logs, schedules which define the frequency, input document, which is a summary document with the performance data, and management review report. It's a formal records of review meetings. Okay. So that something is part of a requirement. Now question is why we need all these steps. That's a question. Because see, internal audit allow the aspirants to assess the ISMS effectiveness that is there. And with the help of that, we can able to demonstrate the compliance issues and everything. Why management review is important? Because it provides the opportunity to align the ISMS with the strategy goal. We have to make sure we are in a right path. And third is documentation, because that is how you can able to track the function. Now I done with the audit, we done with the implementation, we done everything. Now what is next? So next is basically called as a continual improvement. Definitely what we have implemented, we have to monitor that, right? So we have a continual improvement. So we have to ensure the ISMS is continually improved and addressing its suitability, adequacy, and all that. So the review of ISMS performance is so first is source for improvement can be your audits. We do audits regularly, risk assessment, management review, which help me to improve my overall controls. Second is whenever there's a change in the regulations and all that, monitor. So we need to monitor that. That's another important thing we have. And based on that, we define the improvement objective. We set the specific measurable objectives to improve your ISMS performance. For example, increase employee awareness of information security through quarterly training sessions, reduce incident response time by implementing automate alert system. So this data we got after review. Okay, so it's very important. So here we establish the continuous improvement program. We document all the actions, plans and all that, and the required document is required in this phase is ISMS improvement log. Okay, so this log I have to demonstrate, okay, we did this kind of an improvement, this is a log for that. Okay, that's a very important part. Second is when the gap you identify and sometimes the controls are not working adequately, so it is called as a non-conformity and we need a corrective action for that. So when you're talking about, we need a step process here, how to respond to non-conformity, because for everything we have a process. So we have some steps to implement which react to the non-conformity, like we take immediate actions if it's a very critical and see. If I say if any security control is failed, we have to apply temporary security measure, okay, or we need to identify the consequences. So we need one requirement document called as a non-conformity report, which record the detail of non-conformity. Okay, this is the non-conformity, this is the action has been taken, this is the immediate corrective measures that we have applied. Okay, so that's something we take. Then we also have another process, like we have a required documents like non-conformity report, and then we evaluate the need for root cause analysis also, like we review the non-conformity, we determine the cause, we identify do we have a similar risk. So one document we need to maintain is root cause analysis report. So we need one document called non-conformity report, and second is root cause analysis report. Why this happening? So make sure it should not be repeated again. That's the most important part. That's the second step. Then third step in this is called as a implement the corrective action. So we have to develop an action plan. Okay, we identify this control is missing. So action plan is, this is the control. So we have to define the timeline. Okay, by what time you're going to implement that. That's the most important part. Then how many resources are required. Okay, then you apply the preventative measure. So we need some document here. Okay, like we need a corrective action plan. So if I'm saying I document, okay, there's no change management procedure. So corrective action will be basically prepared by the auditee. So here the corrective action plan we have is like record of corrective action, responsible party, deadline and everything. And then according to deadline, I will do the follow up. Next is called review the effectiveness of corrective action. So we review the corrective action with the help called corrective action report. So that's something we have, which is basically talk about, yes, the action has been taken and everything. That something is part of the requirement. Now, after doing this, we have to track other activities. Okay, so we will look for the key parameters, and according to that, I will update the document. That something is part of the requirement. Now, next is called, we document the evidences. Okay, like nature of each conformity, detail of corrective actions, and evaluation results. This is captured in the non-conformity corrective action logs. Okay, so the required document called as a non-conformity corrective action logs, which is like a consolidated record of all the non-conformity corrective actions and their outcome. So we have some documents which is required in this particular stage, which is like this one. Give me a second. Yeah. So we need a ISMS improvement log, which track the ongoing improvement. We need a non-conformity report. We need root cause analysis report. It's up to you. You can have both report in one. Okay, that is possible. Then corrective action plan. Then corrective action effectiveness report, how effective is that? And then final non-conformity correction action logs. Okay, so difference between this non-conformity and non-conformity corrective action log is that it's a comprehensive. This one is a comprehensive log of all the non-conformity corrective. So if you want to see on one page, you can have this log which give you the better info, because this is the report about non-conformity what we have, and what is the action has been taken that captured in this log. So that's the difference we have. Okay. Now, the question is why these steps are important. Because see, when we say continuous improvement, ensure your ISMS involved along with the new security threats. So log demonstrate the commitment. Non-conformity responses, which talk about, how promptly you address the non-conformity, reducing risk exposures and all that, and corrective measures. And then we have a root cause analysis where you identify the root cause of non-conformity, which basically prevent their recurrence. And the root cause is all about why this happened, so that we can able to terminate that. It should not be happen again. So root cause is very important. Then corrective action planning is important because this ensure your structured process is there to solve the issue, not something on hi-fi. And that verify the action has been taken. So if you have these logs, you can able to track the things and document all the compliance. So this is how you implement the entire ISMS in the organization. In my next video, that's my final video, we're going to check how can we ensure my organization is ready for ISO 27001 certification preparation. Do let me know how do you find this video in a comment box, and your love and affections are very important, which help me to reach my next milestone, to spread this video as much as possible to the people who want to learn about ISMS. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. Good day. Bye.